Yeah, but Uber is like, they have, I mean, they're in a different sort of position because the long-term plan, because now the self-driving cars are becoming a thing. So they want to get rid of the drivers eventually.
But you know what? Self-driving.
What?
Okay, wait. We gotta start. We gotta start the meeting, guys. I'm sorry. Austin, what's your last name again?
Evans.
Evans.
Yeah.
Guys, I've already given you the preamble, and you've already given your own preambles. Everybody's familiar with it. So at the last minute, I was going to lead this myself. I'm glad I didn't because it would just been an obnoxious rant if I had. So we brought in
Today's not about ranting.
It certainly is, but we've got a moderator here to keep fistfights from breaking out. So I'd like to introduce Austin Evans, who's a corporate attorney, very familiar with the laws, does a lot of compliance work, and works with startups, a lot of different kinds of people, good variety. So without further ado, if you want to add anything to your bio, please
that's
do.
how we got connected. We did stuff with Startup Week San Diego. That was back in, I guess, May or so. I feel like it was last week, 6 months ago or whatever. That's fine. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm avoiding you because I know you don't like cameras. Okay, thanks. Thank you.
But I feel like a lot of it is, so like Rob said, so we do corporate law, so I'm not quite exactly in the labor side of things strictly. I advise a lot of companies and startups and small businesses just generally. So things that range from security stuff, business corporation stuff, vendor issues, a lot of contract writing, that kind of stuff. And then also there's always the HR and labor issues part of that. So that's where we connected and we kind of got roped in there. So that's my background. I do have to kind of give a little bit of an admonishment to say that I'm an attorney, but I'm not your attorney. If you need legal advice, go seek an attorney and all that kind of fun stuff. I'm glad it's being recorded so everyone knows that I said that at least. So I'll speak kind of generally for what what the law kind of provides and stuff. And so I think for me, like I could I think it'd probably be the best part. Yeah. I think we're good with that. That's just fine. So I think it'd be good to just kind of give some, objective kind of just background for like what's going on and kind of the changes for it, a little bit of like what the law used to be, and I say law generally not just AB5 or the statutes, but like what the courts, how the courts were acting, how all the agencies that apply all the various laws were acting, and then kind of what changed with both the case called Dynamax, which happened in 2018, which is where the California Supreme Court in a unanimous decision passed down a lot of what was actually codified in the AB5. So there's a lot of changes going on with that, and the way that the legislator looks at it, they say that they say that they actually aren't changing the law; they're just codifying what has already been interpreted as the law, especially through the Supreme Court. So that's kind of where we came today.
Can I ask?
Yeah.
Do you believe that part? It seems like they went way beyond that. What he said was that they were just codifying a California Supreme Court decision.
Well, I think the Supreme Court was the one that went pretty far with that one. And actually, when that case was going on, there's a lot of questions. There was a lot of questions about, I already did the 9-way test, that we were kind of or not 9-way factors.
Why don't you go over those now, just in case people aren't familiar?
Yeah. So back in the day, there's a case called Borrello, and that was back, I believe, in the 80s, and then the 89. And that passed down, let me find it, kind of 9 factors that were weighed kind of overall as far as determining whether or not, the big question is whether or not an employee should be an employee or an independent contractor.
Can I ask you who the 2 parties were that were, who was the complaint filed against?
Because that was not Dynamax.
No, this is the 89 one.
I'm actually not too sure for that one, but the Dynamax one was actually trucking delivery services. Yeah. So it's kind of interesting for that. The 9 factors used to be the right to just basically at-will employment, and I say employment generally, not the name just within an employee, but just kind of within an employee or an independent contractor. But the right, to discharge at will. Whether the one providing services is engaged in a distinct business. So, like you all probably hold yourself out for a particular business, so you hold yourself out for that. The kind of occupation and whether that's usually done separately based on the locality where you are, the skill required, whether you provide your own instrumentalities and tools, the length of time for the services to be performed, how you get paid and on what basis, and whether or not the work was part of the regular business of the person working for, and then whether the parties actually believed that there was an employee-employer relationship. So that was used to be the 9 factors, and when I say factors, that means, you could have 5 or 6 of them in some kind of combination, and the way that the courts looked at it was saying, we can't say, we're not going to give you a nice bright line rule. We're going to say as the situations come up on an individual basis, these 9 factors will weigh into that decision of an employee-IC relationship. And so, some weigh more than others based on the type of work happening. So that's kind of how the law used to be, and we were kind of just all kind of a little bit in flux, kind of figuring out, kind of going through, kind of on.
What year was that again?
That was '89 when that came out. Yeah. And then 2018 then is when Dynamics came in. So that's the case where there were people who were working for a delivery company. They wore the company's uniform that they had to pay for. They delivered the goods and services basically on a variety of different bases. So sometimes flat fees, sometimes based on a delivery kind of a thing. The employees, and I again say that generally, the people working first figured out they did work their own time, but if they did agree to deliver a package, they had to deliver it within that certain year, that timeline that was agreed upon. They could take their own routes, all that kind of stuff. And so that was kind of when the courts came in and we were like, all right, what is actually going to be this relationship? How are we going to define that? And then are we going to go from that 908 test to that to what we call the ABC test, which is the 3, kind of what we have now. And the court went with the ABC test. And so now what we have is there's 3, the presumption is someone's an employee. So if someone's working for you, they are your employee unless you can meet each of the 3 parts of the ABC test. So the A1 is that the person's free from your direction and control. So typically, as you guys are probably used to that being, you're a writer or who's someone writer. So you're a writer. So it's like write this piece for me or something like that. But we're not going to tell you how to do that. We're not going to tell you where to go, what hours to do that. So basically, as long as the only thing that you have to really deliver is that deliverable. The how you get to that point, that's kind of what we mean by that part of it. The C part is that the person is customarily engaged in that business and holds himself out to do that. So that's pretty standard for most people as well, too, especially here at the table here. But the key thing and the trick here is that B test, that second one, but I mentioned it third because it's a little bit more of a controversial one, is that the person performs work that's outside the usual course of the employer's or the engaged party's business. And so the classic example that everyone's talking about, and I think that's kind of what's been driving the public discussion here, is the Uber part. And so, are the drivers part of the usual business for Uber, or are they part of, an ancillary business that Uber has that, isn't quite core to what Uber's business is? I think Uber's argument is, no, we're a referral service, and we just connect people needing rides to people providing the rides, and that's our business, and that's it. But I think most people kind of recognize, no, you're a taxi service basically, and so the core part of your business is driving people from A to B, and so the drivers are core to that, and so that's kind of where that's all right. Now, that has a lot more impact of us. I think we're going to propose some of those people, and that's kind of where we are today with all of that. So, the law, when they passed the law, they codified that test, and then they granted certain exemptions for that by statute. So for certain, there's a good old laundry list of like what those positions are. Things like insurance agents, healthcare practitioners, lawyers, thankfully, me, broker dealers, direct salesmen, people who provide professional services. So there are some exemptions for that.
Now that was in the court ruling? Or
no, this is in the statute.
This is in the statute itself.
This is in the statute itself, yeah.
But as a process, that happened over time as those groups realized what was going on, right?
Probably, yeah.
Okay.
So
because it's filled with it. That's why we're getting a little bit into like the discussion part, but it took away the chance for us ever to have our own independent status, in my opinion. Because now they're just granting. Now the truck drivers are getting exceptions. Anyway, I'm going into the talk.
Well, no, it's fine.
Just that exception part bothered me more than just about everything.
And there's other things too, where the exemptions say that instead of going through the ABC test, if you fit one of these exemptions, you go under the old Barillo test. So you go under the old 9-factor test instead of the 3-element test. And so there are exceptions exceptions for that, and then the carve out too is that if a court decides that for this particular reason it can't apply the ABC test, then the Barilla test also.
Oh, it's so complicated.
Yeah, which
Wow.
is great for us, for attorneys.
Yeah. Oh my God.
But a couple of things I want to mention too, though, is first of all, there's what's the significance of it if you are an employee versus an independent contractor. I think the biggest thing is obviously that for the employer, they have to pay all the payroll taxes, social security taxes, workers' comp contributions, unemployment contributions, and then for the employee, they're then protected by wage and hour laws, workplace condition, overtime, sick leave, family leave, all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of the significance of being called an employer or employee versus an independent contractor, because as you all know, if you're an IC, you're outside of that. You're on your own, you provide your own benefits, and you provide all the other stuff. And so yeah, that's kind of where we are with that. I'll be frank, though, just to kind of provide a little bit of a quick analysis for it, though. There are a lot of things that are still kind of, I don't think this completely...
Feel free to give your own opinion.
Yeah. So
your
I
own,
don't think this
and it can be different than ours.
well, probably will be. That's
I mean,
but it provide, I don't think it's completely settled. There is that one little exemption where it says, if the court for some reason determines that we can't apply that ABC test, the old test is going to kick in. I think that's going to get flushed out a lot too within the court system. So obviously, anytime you have a big statute that comes out like this, the courts are going to be the ones that go in there, figure it out, and say, figure out the means that weren't exactly defined within the statute. So there is going to be a little bit of gray area to figure that side of it out. And the politics inside of it too. It's pretty interesting for it. I wonder how much of a let's say fodder, electoral fodder that's going to have going into the elections next year. And so we'll kind of see how that plays out too. Yeah.
I know you say it's taking time, but I've already had 2 instances where I've now gone from will not pay me 1099, only want to do W-2, but then they don't want to pay a good rate for W-2. They're like, no, but then they don't want to give us benefits either because we're only doing 8 projects for them.
so that gives you the worst of both worlds in a way.
And it's like you really have killed us. And they did it with the film industry, which is why I totally got out of that.
Because one of the problems of being self-employed and selling your business is people compare the rate you want to their employees, right? And it makes no sense at all.
Because I work at a project.
Right.
Like you don't hire me for an entire year. You hire me for a month and a half to complete 8 projects. You don't need to pay me, all these different things. I don't need all these different things. I want to work projects. And so it is going to become a political thing. It is a huge political thing because I have noticed it is me on the right versus my friends who are highly into the union on the left. It is become
Suddenly I'm on the right. I've never been on the right in my life. I don't know how to be right-wing. It's like, I have to learn.
families always own businesses. We've always been self-employed. My thought is like, if you want to go on vacation, you want to do something, you work your butt off to make your money to do it.
Yeah.
And so, which is funny because my mom's entire family is all works for the government, works for the military, all left. We're the black sheep of the entire family. Right? They put a divide in our family on the right and left. And it was like, no, I want to tell you how I spend my money. You don't get to tell me how I spend my money or how I make my money. That's what
It's an attack on independence. I was in the room when the union guy was talking about how they were going to spin, not this particular thing, the meeting. His name is Steve Smith. He's for the California AFL-CIO or something. And they have to make their bad guys. It was all money. Someone else you pointed out, it was the union money. Lori Saldana has gotten, the source I read, about $250,000 from public employee unions. I'm sounding right-wing now, I know. Because but there's legitimate. And $250,000 from other unions. That's a fortune. And she pushed it through. I mean, she really did it, and she's all sorts of concern trolling on, now. But here's a big question I have. And it's not just about the law, it's a bigger question than that, and it's really almost deep. Where do businesses come from in the first place? At some point, they're just an idea in one guy's head or gal, or 2 maybe, partnerships happen, but that's all. It always starts there. Now things get acquired lately and stuff, but it's almost like you walk into a forest and you see a bunch of oak trees and you say, oh, isn't that oak trees must come from other oak trees. No, oak trees come from acorns. And that's what I think they're killing here. They're just making, businesses don't spring up overnight into small businesses that have a nice 25 employees or something, which is how they think of small businesses. Some of them might think of 5 or 10, but they think of nice little manufacturing. That's not the reality of the economy these days. That's not how it works. I am interested in getting other opinions here because I could rant forever. And
Let me ask a practical question, which really doesn't address the substance. What is enforcement going to be like? Is it likely to require one person?
Actually, it probably would be more through EDD and wage orders and stuff like that. So, if, for example, if you are a person who should be an employee under the new law and you're considered an independent contractor, you could bring an wage and hours question with EDD. You could bring basically what the drivers did in Dynamax. You could bring an action like that and say, hey, I should be entitled to back pay or overtime pay or workers' comp or whatever the thing that you need that you're not getting because you're not an employee. That would be kind of how that goes.
Right,
So
that's enforcement from someone who wants to be an employee.
True.
I assume your question was, I don't want to be an employee.
Right.
So I'm just going to keep the same deal, my same arrangement with my employer. How are we going to get busted? Who's going to employ?
yeah, and how could she protect herself in that
In
scenario?
that case, IRS.
Well, then
This is
it's
the
all
California
state. It's all state law though. So the actually the AG was the
Okay,
one
well,
that has.
California franchise tax board, whatever.
Yeah, so the Attorney General actually has provisions to be able to step into the as well too. So that could be just word of mouth coming through the agencies, which is not atypical for how it happens.
So do they impose an additional fee if you're not an employee?
What do you? I guess what I'm trying to. If you're not an employee,
If you're not an employee, but you're an independent contractor,
right?
from the perspective of the franchise tax board and, IRS, what do? They say you can't keep doing your work, you have to become an employee.
They find the crime.
Your employer.
That'd be the
I
employer.
don't have a specific employer. Some of them are out of the country, and I work for multiple people.
Yeah.
Oh, but then you might be just under the radar for them. I
But
think
we don't necessarily want to be under the radar. It's part of the problem. We want to be legit, right?
So how does it apply to, if they're not a California employer?
Yeah.
If you're doing work in this, if you're doing the work here in this state, though, the laws are so strict.
No kidding.
I still report all income even when it comes from overseas.
Yeah.
I pay D taxes.
Sure.
And one employer actually deducts all the, CASD and EFM and all those taxes too. But that's just one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there could be situations though where you could be based on the type of work you're doing, where you could have, let's say you have 10 people that you work for. Three of them you could be considered employees based on the test or whatever for those three. You could be paid W-2 for those ones. The other 7 you could still be a 1099, and then that would just be up to you to collect all your taxes and list out the W-2 listed as wages and income for your 1099s. Put that in as self-employment income, and then
I don't even get W-2s or 1099s.
Yeah. Oh, you
It's all
do?
self-reported.
Oh, okay.
Well, can I ask? There's a couple parts of the law that I consider really draconian. I love that word. One of them is the companies can no longer hire you if you're doing essentially the same business as them, right? That's one of the tests, right? On the new law. It's something. If you're in the same line of business, it's the second.
No, if it's primary to their business.
If it's primary to their business.
Yeah. So it's a little bit more, yeah.
I have a client who basically we've already had some sort of discussion about this because they do instructional designs. Well, I write for them. They have to have a writer to do the instructional design.
Yeah, you're selling.
Business.
What you do is primary to their business.
Exactly. So they don't want to hire me 1099 anymore. They want to only hire me W-2, but they won't pay me enough W-2, and they can't keep me on because they get projects throughout the year. So it's a business model that's not working. It's the same with the film and TV industry. They only shoot for 13 weeks.
Right.
They don't shoot for the entire year on it. So now what they want the studios to do is hire people to sit around, essentially.
And what defines what's critical to the business. Is marketing critical to an airline?
So there has been
That bothers
discussion around B, right? Because it hasn't been challenged in the court yet,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah.
So there's no definition. And it doesn't, I mean, that's what happens. And there are new laws, and they get caught, like you said, court system. And, you know, I mean, to me, if you have to have something done to complete the business, to sell something, and that's essential to the business.
Right.
So it's everything that you do.
But it's gonna be a little bit, it's a little different though. It's not quite how I look at it is not a test of whether it's essential to the business, but whether that's like the core purpose that they do. So, like for example, this bread shop here, you know, the people serving the food would be employees from this site.
Baker.
Yeah.
Baker.
Yeah. But also like the people that deliver the grain here, that's essential to the business because this place can't grow anything or make anything without the grain coming in. But if you're contracting out to have that delivered to you, you know, that's ancillary to what you do. And so even though you might be hiring someone to go fetch grain for you or something like that, that could possibly be something on a contractor basis. So it's really, and that's where that's what I'm saying. It's not settled, you know, by any means, because even for each individual business, the question should be, okay, what's your core? What are you gonna actually? What's your core business? What's your purpose that you have for there? And you know, for a lot of businesses, there's gonna be these side things that are separate from that. You know, sticking around here, payment processing, power utilities, janitorial services, you know, all that kind of stuff is ancillary to a bakery or a brick and mortar restaurant. So that's going to be kind of this kind of question.
So I ask you this is a legal question.
Yeah.
Because we're in the state of California, and like one of my clients, we have clients that in different places. One of my clients is like in Tennessee. Tennessee doesn't have the same laws we do, but now I can't work for Tennessee unless they follow the rules here.
God, it's
So
fine.
now they're actually taking away work from us.
Yeah.
How about you go to Tennessee to like
Yeah,
be there?
Exactly. Well, that's what I'm saying. So legally, I mean, don't independent contractors have a challenge against the law because they're making it difficult for us to break? Yes.
Well, it's
How does that work?
but.
Because it's interstate commerce.
Yeah, but they're just as long as the work's being performed in a jurisdiction, regardless of what state it is, like that's the state laws will take it from where the work's being performed. And so because things are being, if you're doing the work here in California, that's where that comes from.
So we all get on a boat that does 12 miles offshore.
International waters. Yeah, we need to go to international waters.
They're actually coming up with loopy ideas, like we're all supposed to have get in some union hall now.
Oh, I can
Which would be fine if they actually-
set somewhere else.
What's that?
I can use a VPN and be in Canada.
Yeah, exactly.
So how do we get away? How did that happen? Because they're restricting work, and I have friends who are saying the same exact thing. Like they're restricting our ability to make money by telling us we can't.
Oh, let me-
That's outrageous.
let me add another
How do we get around that?
age discrimination. Companies are not hiring middle-aged women. When I work online, no one knows my age.
And you know what else? It's a women's issue. There's a lot more freelance women than guys.
Yeah.
They're just bringing that because Laura Saldana's, yeah.
Can't get through.
Single moms
Yeah.
are getting screwed. I mean, it's insane. I want to cover another issue though, because that part I think is awful. But for writers and journalists, this 15 article limit, that's insane. 35. I was on the Twitter feed, AB5 if you want to follow it, and Laura Saldana is out there practically trolling. Oh goodness, I lost my train of thought. Where was it?
Well, I thought that was a little unusual too, and that's actually the only thing where they've specifically put a cap on the number of projects.
Yeah. Oh, and I remember what I was going to say, how they came up with that number. She says, "Oh, we're kicking it around. That's what we came up with." They pulled it out of their ass. She pulled it out of her ass. I mean, there's no polite way to say that, as far as I know. But that's the level of granularity they're getting into regulating. They started with the exceptions, and now it's like we're illegal aliens or something. I'm sorry, I'm ranting. Someone else. Who haven't we heard from?
Well, I think
Flatten or something.
the distinction, though, is that it's the way that the law will look at it. It's not, and this kind of answers a little bit of your question too about restraining trade. It's not that it's limiting you trying to do the work, but it's the way that it really hits the ground is that the people that you're talking to, we're no longer going to have you as 1099. We want you as W-2 now. It's going to be the employers and people hiring you out for stuff that are going to start making different decisions. and that's where it's going to have the biggest effect.
Well,
And
no,
that-
but they, like I said, Tennessee doesn't pay W-2, they pay 1099, so
Yeah.
they're not gonna hire me, they're gonna go find somebody else.
Right.
I'm not gonna work,
Right.
because they can't pay me 1099, or they're gonna have to pay me W-2 in order to comply with California law. So that's where I say that you're restricting my ability to make money. Now you have said, okay, these people, if they don't follow California law, well, then you don't get to work. So then I'm gonna be like, okay, I'll move to Arizona,
Yeah.
get a second house somewhere else. It doesn't.
So what is the situation with part-time workers? I mean, there might be kind of a fuzzy line sometimes between independents and part-time. So if some company decided to hire you part-time for 5 hours a month, can they do that?
Yeah, and the statute, there's a provision in the statute that says that it doesn't prohibit you from being a part-time employee or having multiple part-time employments elsewhere.
But they'd have to pay payroll tax. And, okay.
Whatever taxes would apply for that would still kick in. And then that would also kind of, it might be good or bad for you, because if you're dipping in a lot of different employments elsewhere, I'm not sure if your withholdings would be sufficient enough to cover the total income that you make. And so that might be an implication come tax time, because if you're getting withheld at 10% because they think your income's only $6,000.
So if you do that, don't take
employer.
exemptions.
Yeah, but if you do that times, if you're doing that times 10, so you get $60,000, but you're only being withheld at 10%, now you're at 25%, there might be some implications for you come tax time, you might have to pay more just to cover that up.
Okay.
But,
Pay estimated
yeah, that's very true, yes. Yeah. So when you do your W-9, that's the I-9, W-4, I forget which form it is. You could always put in there, yes, I would like to have $50 more per pay period taken out. Because, basically, withholdings aren't really, it's not like a tax, it's actually an advance or and then you pay the tax and the company. So, yeah.
Could I ask, do you have anything? I was going to ask what people think the future of self-employment is, how you see yourselves in the world. Since I've started this group a couple years ago, I've always said, if you've talked to one self-employed professional, you've talked to one self-employed professional. There is no thing. We've had inventors come in here. We've had startup founders. We have what I call serial contractors. They work for one company for 6 months. They get invited to Christmas parties. They still consider themselves independent, and then they work for the next company for 6 months. There's people that hammer together a living from Uber and little gigs they have on the side and their own interest projects, and somehow in a tough economy they make it happen. There is no one kind. So
Then there's one that's only seasonal.
yeah, it's seasonal. It's just, there's opportunistic.
Right.
I'm not really doing anything, but wow, this comes up, I'm going to jump on it. There of every possible stripes. So what I'm interested in hearing about is what you think the future. Do you see yourself working? Oh, there's one more kind, or a couple more kinds. There's what I call zero employee companies. You look at some of these people, and there's a couple of people here that I think fall in this category. For all practical purposes, they are small businesses. Their websites are gorgeous, their intake procedures, their professionalism. I'm way far from that. But a couple of you are there, I think, here. So they're small businesses, but also self-employed. So what is your vision of both yourselves and where you see it going? Whatever. I mean, just open. Michelle, you start. You've been the church.
Start with me?
Yeah.
I am all over the place.
That's what I want to hear. It'll be all over the place.
I just do contract work.
And you like it.
And I what?
And you like it, right?
It's okay. It pays the bills.
Would you take a full-time gig if you was offered?
Depends.
Okay.
I would think about it.
Was it a really good opportunity?
Yeah.
There must be something you like about independence, because I've known you for a long time. You've been doing it for a long time.
Well, part of the problem is we all fall into the same category. We're too old. And,
Yeah, tell me about it.
I mean, I'm in the tech industry, so
Yeah, it's awful.
I gotta get a job.
Age discrimination is totally real. And I'm gender too. But
So I just do other things. So,
decided that I understand now that I'm not going to get a job. So I figured out, well, how else am I going to make this?
It's another thing I don't think they understand. I will never get a regular job. They won't hire me. And if they did, I probably couldn't do it. I've got my ADHD. I've got 6 hours of great attention a day, but that's it. You can't lock me in a room. Management by walking around. I was a program manager in Silicon Valley. I've been on overseas gigs a number of times. I've had to go through checkpoints with guys with Uzis, and I never got rattled. Lock me in an office for 6 hours, and I'll be a wreck. So I can't.
Change just the nature of employment, and we're kind of ebb and flowing between remote working at home. Some places are more in favor of that, or others. My girlfriend's an auditor, and she's a management there. And dealing with millennials coming into the workforce and their expectations and what they want. I just kind of wonder if perhaps this kind of thinking outside of our conversation maybe, but I wonder if that's going to change. The dynamic of a 9-to-5 sitting at desk work environment anymore. I think it might be a little bit more flexible for this. Just as an employer, even if I have to call you an employee, I'm going to employ you and do a W-2, but I'm still going to make sure that your expectations are going to be met. So if I want to have people like you working for me, or not even just working, if I want your services that you provide, I might have to then change my dynamic, how I see that employee relationship and match that to what is going to feel the best fit for myself.
I would hope so, because this seems like it was an attack. Unions are all about collective bargaining,
right,
which I'm for. I grew up in Detroit, but it wasn't supposed to kill individual bargaining. And that's what we do. We do individual bargaining, right? We don't do collective normally. So that's another big concern. We're not gonna settle this here, obviously.
In the direction of everybody's got an employee, we're going to have a lot more big brother situations.
Yeah.
I certainly didn't see it, popping up. A neighbor on my block who works as a pharmacist, filling orders, walking patients, she is told you are working these hours, you must take your break at this time, you cannot go to the bathroom any other time.
Yeah.
If a phone call prevents you from taking your break at this time, you must email your manager every single time.
Hey,
But
remote work can be hell on earth, the wrong kind of gig.
there
Yeah,
was
it can be hell.
one company I was working with that would take a screenshot of your desktop in 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's common.
And every time they do that, I was
Well, isn't that the big one? Isn't that the big freelancer platform? That's Upwork. Upwork. Yeah.
They've been doing.
yeah, it's like desktop, make sure you're working.
Make sure you're actually working.
Actually, it's not Upwork because I've been using Upwork from the employer side. It's up to the guy who's hiring, like to like that or not. Because I'd never do that. Right?
Well, here's the problem though. Most of us do creative work of some kind, and it doesn't work with hours like that. You might be in bed and bolt up, and that's your attention. I'm an expert on attention because I've got very little of it. That's what they're really paying for. When you do the time cards, that never made sense to me, even when I was working at Kentucky Fried Chicken. It's just.
Had a company do that. They wanted an instructional designer, and she's like, "You're perfect." And I said, "Is this a regular office 9-to-5 job?" And she said, "Yes." And I said, "Then I'm not your girl."
Yeah.
And she goes, "Why?" And I said, "Because oftentimes, because I'm a creative, we work at 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm sorry, my best hours are 10 a.m. or 10 p.m. to 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, you'll get an email from me with whatever I finished at 4 a.m. Yeah.
So you can, there's timers where you can make it.
From the company. I used to work for the Buzala, and for some reason, half of 20% companies works at 2 a.m. or something like that.
Well, no, it depends. Like a lot of the tech companies.
Right.
So this was for a tech
Thank you.
company.
Yeah.
This is not they just want a designer to do all their instructional design for their actual product. But they wanted me in office, and I was like,
I noticed there is a trend. There is a certain group of people. What they biggest aspiration in life is to walk around and look at the minions. Just sit around. So
Look at what?
at the minions.
At the minions.
So they don't care if anything useful is being produced or anything. They just want to feel important, and then you just walk around the house and say, look at my minions. And this guy,
if you actually want me to design you something, you have to let me work at 10 o'clock at night.
Right.
You can't tell me I need to work at 9 o'clock from your office, which is really noisy.
And that doesn't mean you can't meet a deadline.
Right.
And did you-
I agree to deadline,
did
but
you-
you gotta let me work at 10 o'clock.
Did you know the average worker in America, and I know there's a lot of exceptions, of an 8-hour day, 2 hours are productive. The rest is talking, maintaining relationships,
Every time you get interrupted.
watching, you have interruptions, all. I have a friend, he worked for, I can say the agency, I don't care, San Diego Housing Commission years ago. And at the same time, he had a job doing energy studies for SDG&E, really lucrative. He'd study energy plans. He used to get his Housing Commission job done in the first hour and a half of every morning. And his stats that they looked at were better by far than anybody. The rest of the day, he would take his plans and make his $80 an hour, you know. And so he's my rich friend now, you know, because, you know, public sector job for a decade and working a lucrative business. I mean, come on, you know, so he's rich. You know?
Minions, I have to go pick mine up. It was lovely to meet you.
Thank you so much, Megan.
Thank you.
And I guess we probably should wind down now, but let's have everybody.
Last question.
Oh, yeah, by the way, yeah.
So it sounds to me like the law was crafted in an old school mindset, and it didn't take into account new technologies and where they're going.
Yeah.
Because the way you were saying, reading that you were even pointing out in here, you're talking about the accounting or the payment processing. The
Right.
payment processing is outsourced. It's done in person.
Yeah.
So where does that line get drawn? Because so many things are being outsourced, and why can't a person coupled with technology be an outsourced solution as opposed to a key part of the business?
Well, I think they could be. I think they could be.
Yeah.
And then actually, you know, there's a pretty lengthy part about professional services. So let me kind of pull my notes on this one because I was looking at this earlier.
This due to startups, like an individual engineer who maybe has venture capital, are they going to consider the venture capital?
So that would be, you know, if they're an equity owner, they're not an employee.
But they're not an equity owner.
So it depends on what they are. Because, like, for example, like I have a law firm. You know, I have a partner for it. We're both partners. We're both working. We're not law firm's employees. We're partners doing our job, doing our business. And so I've always thought about that in the case of trying to avoid workers' comp. You know, especially in construction. Construction is like, you know, a third or so for workers' comp, you know, premiums. And well, I'd rather, you know, I want to avoid it. Let's make him an owner, make him or her an owner, give him 5%. I'm like, well, in theory, that's okay, but as long as their entire income is based on 5% of the income for that month or that period, like, you know, they have to be prepared for some really cold winters and really dry winters and really good summers. So that'd be part of it too.
Now, what if you are your own company?
Yeah, that's the question.
That's probably what we all have to do, right?
Yeah.
That's
It's expensive.
yeah, it is.
So if you're your own company, I mean, that you can still. I don't think it applies to like if you're a sole proprietor, you're basically you're acting as your own person. So there's no protection. You know, there's no
That's true.
legal
I have to
distinction.
deduct my health insurance.
But what if you're LLC, like, would it be?
So it would depend on if you're a member for it, and if they're how you're working that. If you're big, like, you know, like we're an LLP because we're allowed to be because we're a profession. So we're not an employee of the LLP of the partnership. We're just partners managing it. But you know, some people do that too, though, where we go on salary as an S corp, and then, you know, we get paid that salary from the company and basically become an employee, and that's that's basically for tax reasons, especially self-employment tax. That type of thing.
Yeah, I'm required to pay myself a salary too.
Yeah, exactly. But to get to, I think, your question, though, as far as like, you know, these other things, so there's a special part about professional services, so things like, it actually lists out a lot of the things there: marketing, HR, graphic design, grant writers, payment processing, enrolled agents. That's actually where the photographer and the writer provision kicks in too. If you're providing those kind of services for a company, as long as you meet certain other requirements, you would then be subject to the old test.
They're just getting into micromanaging. It's so really, you know, just not the way I work. Why don't we? Can we wind it down?
Yeah, absolutely.
Closing points, or you're good?
Pretty good, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for helping us out. Really appreciate it, Austin. If you could all hang around for like 1 minute.